everybody, welcome. I am hosting today because George is out of office. So you are stuck with me, I'm afraid, but he will be back next week. And we have Thomas here, who I've been told I can introduce as the head of product. So I think that counts as maybe a bit of an upgrade to Thomas's official position. So congratulations, Thomas. How do you feel um, at, at
Thanks,
this
I'm feeling
upgrade?
pretty good about it.
Yep. For those of you who don't know, and you probably do, Thomas has been leading our stocks development. So he's in a very good position to talk about all of that stuff related to the on chain stock market things that we're doing. So, to kick off with the questions, we have quite a few from Void Sculptor, who says, firstly, what will be the capabilities of the dApp on launch? Is it asset mirroring only, full trading, etc., so on? What can you tell us about this?
This is a very broad question, to be honest. I think we cannot announce specific details on what is going to be there at launch until we have a website ready where we're going to say what's going on there and without prior marketing announcements. So, in general, the capabilities is going to be asset mirroring, definitely. So, Stocks is a pretty new project. Right now, we focus on time to market. What does that mean? That's basically, in general, we do not only develop right now a product that we're going to publish and then it's good to go. It's an overall vision, a long-term plan where we have this future idea that stocks is becoming the central cornerstone on DuskEVM and the overall financial ecosystem. So we have this long-term strategic plan and we have a vision of what stocks and the ancillary DuskEVM ecosystem would look like for both traditional investors but also crypto people alike, and also how they can benefit from each other. And basically, the long-term vision here in terms of the capabilities in general is that we have a fully vertically integrated product that offers a multitude of desires and use cases for users, from trading to various investment products and assets. And right now, in our product, we basically have reviewed the regulatory landscape. What are we able to do? What can we do quickly? What takes more time to do because we need to implement certain regulatory processes. We have also reviewed the sourcing of certain RWAs that we are able to provide or able to provide at a later stage. And obviously also we have reviewed the distribution paths for that so that we can expand upon that in the future. And basically on launch, we will have already done a lot of the heavy lifting of things that we anyways need to implement. This means the streamlined regulatory onboarding solutions for the KYC, investigating specific payment rails, deciding on the most sensible approaches here, and also we had to investigate and spec out the complete off-chain infrastructure that we need to build so that we have some sort of link from DuskEVM to off-chain system parts of the traditional finance ecosystem where we actually source assets and tokenize them. So I think it's best to just stay tuned on further updates in terms of the capabilities. And that's basically it for the question.
Cool. So it was going to be an iterative approach where it builds as we go.
Yeah, definitely. So we have a phased approach for the application. We have factors which are basically deciding what kind of things we are prioritizing because there are external parties and dependencies which we do not have necessarily control over. And when you compare to a full Web3 DeFi app, there's always this regulatory thing also in the space and specific legal clarifications that we need for off-chain processes. And certain things are more complex to do and other things are less complex to do. For example, if we are talking about a DEX which trades cryptocurrencies, it's basically a smart contract that you can put on Ethereum. But if we want to put out a DEX for specific tokenized assets, there's MiFID 2 and MiFIR reporting requirements, etc., that we need to sort out, which isn't the case for the asset mirroring. So there are a multitude of different aspects that need to be done, but it doesn't need to be done all at once, which means we are able to push features out once they are ready and expand upon that from time to time in this phased approach.
Awesome. And then to the next question is about KYC. So can you share anything about how the KYC process will be managed and organized? Is it going to be through MPEX or another way of doing it?
Yeah, I've seen the question if it's going to be centralized or in some decentralized form. So it's going to be both. We have both an on-chain and an off-chain part. We are going to use a well-known and compliant KYC provider for the verification. And we also have on-chain systems, so smart contracts in place to verify users on-chain without publishing any private information about them to those smart contracts. And they are then linked to their corresponding DuskEVM address. And through that, they are then able to access stocks once they are completely onboarded and verified through the KYC process. We are also investigating the processes of NPEX at the moment with regards to having derived KYC and also reusing processes from their side. But in general, the process is going to be an on-chain and an off-chain process.
And I don't know if you're able to answer this one, but how many assets will be available in the dApp on launch? Like, what kind of information can you give us about that?
Mm, that's also a good question. So we have more than one asset available. Obviously, I'm not going to say the number here right now, but we are looking into funds specifically right now. And on launch, we are going to provide certain funds, which are money market funds, and some other fund products which are able to yield from other sources. And those are going to be the first assets that we will have available on the stocks application.
Awesome. And to continue with Voice Sculptor, um, can you share anything about the external services that will be used? I guess that's pretty similar to maybe there's some overlap with the KYC question, but is there anything else that's going to be involved in stocks like that that you can share a little bit of the behind the scenes and a bit of to speak to Frisk's question, to lift up the curtain a little bit on what's going on?
Depends how you define external services. So when we define external services as services that are running externally apart from DuskEVM, then we are going to integrate external parties like the KYC, for example, specific onboarding questions, not onboarding questions, onboarding processes. They are also going to run externally. And also we need to navigate regulatory clarity, which means we have to put in specific systems to be operating legally in the European Union. Those systems may include specific source of funds checks, monitoring, and also, if needed, then for trading parts, etc., the reporting modules. And also, we have one partner that is able to provide assets, and also more assets than we will have at the beginning for the future. And this partner is also more or less an external service that we need to integrate with to source those assets and make them then available on stocks on chain.
Great. And what about on and off ramping? That's one of the biggest questions in crypto. I spent the weekend trying to on ramp my dad into crypto, and it took all day. So, how are we going to be handling that?
Stocks is going to be a Web3 first app at the beginning. So you are going to log in with a Web3 wallet, like for example with MetaMask in the future. And based on demand, we might also add traditional email password login. And we are also looking into the novelty of account abstraction. But in terms of on-off ramping from a financial perspective, we are currently supporting cryptocurrencies as of now as the on-ramping for payment flows. And they are able to be conducted on a multitude of chains for the on-ramping then. And for off-ramping, you are able to off-ramp the assets on DuskEVM and then receive stablecoins on DuskEVM. That is the current system we have been investigating. And this is the most feasible in relation to time to market. We are also actively looking into distribution paths, which means that we might have partners that are able to also use stocks and reuse that in their existing applications. They might have different onboarding processes with fiat in place, but we are also looking into fiat ourselves, especially with NPEX, because NPEX as a regulated exchange is able to allow fiat deposit services, obviously.
Awesome. How patient is the institution MPEX? will they walk away if a certain deadline isn't met? From what I've seen, that's not an issue. We're the impatient ones, if anything. Um, Thomas, is that something you can speak to?
Yeah, I think we are more the impatient ones. We want to get stuff out now. We want to develop DuskEVM and stocks and bring this ecosystem alive. I think that there's a necessary problem on the NPEX side with regards to being impatient. What we are currently doing is things that we are doing. NPEX is at the moment modernizing their infrastructure, and they have the core business in their SME bonds, which is their focus also. So I don't think that there's any pressure or impatience on their side with regards to the things that we are doing.
Yeah, that is very much the impression that I have gotten. Um, there's the question. So to go back to Frisk, he says, "Hi Thomas, the stocks dApp is the cherry on the cake, but it's kept private. Can you lift the curtain a little bit just to have a look at progress?" I guess you can't give too much away, but how are you happy with the progress? Is it going in the direction that you think it should be?
I'm happy with the direction we are going for. I'm seeing a lot of progress being done on the implementation parts right now. I'm not able to what extent the lifting of the curtains would mean. We are not able to right now mention specific names or show the demo because we want to coordinate this with marketing. We want to announce this, and when also specific partnerships are in there, this is coordinated with them as well, which they want to communicate. So basically, from a high level perspective, everything is going well there. We are on track. We are actively developing the systems that we need to have in place to be able to make it possible that somebody who is having a wallet on DuskEVM and funds on a specific chain is able to buy these assets and receive them in a tokenized form on their wallet. And that's the current progress on stocks right now. We are also in the finalization phases of the onboarding modules, which means that those are already ready now. There are some remaining legal clarifications that we need to do in terms of the payment flows. And that's basically the status of stocks at the moment.
To skip ahead a little bit, Kai asks, "At what point on Dusk/NPEX's roadmap could we learn what the London trip was about? Should it bear fruit, or is it in the bag already?" The London trip was a good trip. For me, it was very exciting to have so many Dusk people in London, and it seemed like it went pretty well. So, Thomas, what can you share with us about that?
Yeah, I think for this part, we can lift the curtain a little bit. So we are going to announce simultaneously with more info on stocks what the London trip was exactly about. But yes, definitely, it is in the bag already. And not only in the bag, we are already in the process of finalizing those integrations with the partner that we have met in London. And what I can say about it is definitely related to stocks. It's an exchange that we've met. And because we offer tokenized assets on stocks, we are exploring multiple TradFi integrations to get those assets. And the partner that we have met there is one of those.
I was actually in the stocks meet or in that meeting. I didn't have much to say because it was very business and tech related. But the main thing that stood out to me was how kind of enthusiastic people were about what we were doing, and how much sort of overlap there was. And what was pretty cool for me, being English, was that Dusk is kind of compatible with things outside of the EU as well, because obviously with Brexit, the UK now has some different rules. So, Thomas, was that something that you knew, I guess, coming into it, that we would be able to kind of connect with projects
I
outside of the EU, or was it a bit of a pleasant surprise?
I knew it, but not for a long time. I actually learned this from Ryan weeks before that actual meeting, where he told me that when the UK conducted the Brexit, they adopted most of the European Union regulations that have been done during the time where the UK was in the European Union, which means there is a large overlap in regulatory clarity within the European Union and now the UK in the context of those financial products, which means that if we have the regulatory clarity in the European Union, it is high likely that there needs to be none to minimal adjustments to also provide this in the UK.
That's nice. I would like more Dusk in the UK. Um, and I think the final question, because there's a question about nodes, when drop for nodes. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe about the emissions dropping, which, as far as I know, is not for a while. There's a question: when will DuskEVM launch? Obviously, this is a question to which we are not permitted to give a concrete answer. But is there any insight you can give? I know it's not exactly your project, but you might be somewhat aware of it.
Yeah, well, I've been involved in the initial draft of the project plan of DuskEVM, so I've been in active contact with Hein and also informing with him about the progress there. And we are in testing stages of specific modules that need to be in place so that the DuskEVM network is able to settle properly on Dusk DS. And I think we're in a good spot here. I'm not able to announce a specific date here, but I am quite sure that a public testnet is going to be around the corner. There are a few remaining things that need to be internally tested right now, and once those things are finalized, it's good to go for a testnet.
That's cool. I didn't know that. I wasn't sure that we were having a testnet. So thank you for that, Alpha.
Well, it's pretty, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that we are going to publish a testnet before publishing a mainnet.
You would
We are
hope.
already internally having those private testnets where some people also already found out the Explorer URLs and could see the blocks being produced, and our own people deploying certain smart contracts and testing stuff out, including a few smart contracts from stocks as well. So if you are quite a worse detective, maybe you've even found out some tokens that have been deployed there. But yeah, testing is going well. The network was stable. Hein also posted already on Twitter that we pushed in a few blocks, a few hundred transactions, and there weren't any kind of bottlenecks on our sides in terms of processing those transactions. So that's really nice. There are a few remaining parts in terms of data inconsistencies, which means obviously the EVM ecosystem and Ethereum itself as an architecture is different from Dusk, which means that the events from Dusk have a different format than the events on DuskEVM. The same for certain fields and attributes that you need to read from blocks or other software systems, and we need to align them. We need to have systems in place that are able to properly translate them so that the networks can communicate with each other. And we are currently running the testnet, which is settling on the Dusk DevNet, and basically monitoring and seeing what's still left, what is still some of the stuff that we need to conduct so that there is the compatibility 100%. And as soon as this is done, we are basically good to go to publish a testnet. And this testnet is obviously also needed so that we are able to coordinate with our launch partners, because we're not going to launch DuskEVM and it's going to be an empty network. We have people who are interested in developing on DuskEVM. We have partnerships coming up that I'm quite positive about, and I have a really hard time to not announce them right here, but I mean, it's a bit sensitive because they want to coordinate this with us as well before announcing it. And they want to obviously do development effort on the testnet as well to verify that our EVM equivalence works with their systems.
I just want to pick up what you've said about like launch partners and stuff, because this is something that in the marketing team we discuss quite a lot, because it's unfortunately not always as simple as just, oh, we've signed with this project, let's announce it, because sometimes the process of people getting everything signed and fully done can be a little bit long. So I think, as far as I'm aware, the partnerships that were sort of needing to be signed, as far as I'm aware, they've all been signed, and the hard official work has been done. And then the kind of secondary coordination challenge that we sometimes have is about the difference between announcing something and when it's going to be live. Because some of the partnerships that are signed for the launch, if we announce them now, it could be quite frustrating for people because we're not sure if they'll be live on the day of the launch or if they'll need, like, a little bit longer to get all their stuff integrated. So from our side, it's often a bit of a balancing act between making sure that the deals are all signed and perfect, and there's nothing else that could happen, and then is coordinating with their teams around the timelines and whether it's better to announce something, even if it's quite far in advance of their timeline, or to wait until it's much closer. And I think that that's also something that needs to be coordinated with each team, because each of the the third parties will have their own preferences and formats and structures and stuff around that as well. So as far as I'm aware, I think there are quite a few. How many partnerships are procs? What would you say, Thomas? Like 3 to 5, something in that sort of vicinity, in terms of sort of like direct ecosystem things, not to mention the sort of other people that are involved in all of that.
Maybe even more. I think Luca did a really great job in reaching out to a lot
Yeah.
of potential partners that we can have on DuskEVM. And the work that was being done there mainly revolved around the identification of what makes an ecosystem viable. So it's quite easy to spin up an L2, which is settling on some sort of blockchain, and then you have a blockchain network available where anyone can have a wallet and is able to transfer whatever coin that network is using from one wallet to another wallet. But obviously, to make a network viable, to bootstrap it into an ecosystem,
Yeah.
there are a few fundamental parts that need to be in place, and there are a few cherries on top that you can have. And obviously, nowadays, there's also always the talk about the killer apps that you want to have on a blockchain. So it's not only enough to have a blockchain running, but you need something that acts as a pull factor that people wants to use. Now, Stocks is our aim at having a killer app on DuskEVM, and foundational parts of a blockchain is something when you are active in DeFi that you can think about. So we are actively looking into getting bridges on DuskEVM so that it's not an isolated network. We are actively looking into getting DEXs. We're actively looking into getting lending markets. And because we have this overlap with the traditional finance ecosystem, there are a few interesting products that can be done on DuskEVM which couldn't be done otherwise, because specific assets will not be available on other networks, or specific regulatory compliance things with the blockchain network itself cannot be done except if there is an institution like NPEX which holds the licenses and can offer such services, even if they are then partly done on chain.
Yeah. So there's gonna be stuff to do. I think, like, I'm personally not 100% sure if it will be there on the day of the launch, or if some of these things will need, if the external teams will need a little bit of time after the launch. But we're going to be launching with friends, is the key point, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they are also all hardworking people. They have their own products and development efforts also going on potentially on other networks. So maybe they are not able to do it on lunch. Some are able to do it on lunch. Some are able to do it after lunch. But we are also not stopping once DuskEVM is out to continue the conversations we are having with specific parties. So there are, next to those lunch partners, also a lot of projects that we are in contact with that are maybe interested to launch as soon as we have a few of the other fundamental parts on our side with regards to stocks available. And once they are there, then they are instantly willing to deploy because they have a use case which they definitely want to deploy on DuskEVM for that matter.
Yeah, awesome. Um, are there any other questions? I think we've gotten through all of the ones that were put um, in the AMA channel. Is there anything else kind of coming in live from the people now? G is typing. Um, yep, if anybody has any other questions. Is there anything that we may want to hear that we didn't ask about? Um, I don't know, Thomas. Is there anything that you feel like you're sitting on that you wish you could have spoken about?
Yeah, I think a lot of the questions are asking about details, which I sadly am not able to share in such detail as the community might want to. And I think, Jade, from our perspective, there is kind of an information asymmetry because we are in all those groups, we are talking with all those partners, we know the internal situation. And some people also already mentioned that they are a bit not understanding our optimism, but that is mostly based on this information asymmetry which we right now have. But I'm very, very optimistic about it, and I think the the mystery around all of that and the so-called curtain is going to be lifted in the near future more and more when information gets announced, and then suddenly this invisible progress, which is constantly happening, starts to become more and more visible.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a little bit frustrating knowing the things that we've got coming up and not being able to publish about them yet. And just to say
Yeah,
from,
especially
sorry,
if you're excited about
yeah,
sharing some of those news, because when I think about some of these news, and I'm currently teasing the community with that because I'm not able to mention it, but I think we are in pretty interesting times, and in the near future there is a lot that we are able to talk about in much more detail. It's just that we are right now in this in-between phase. We are developing stocks, we are doing the heavy lifting, we are implementing the processes. There are a few legal and regulatory unclarities that we need to sort out next to the technical infrastructure we can develop. But those externalities that need to be sorted out, they need to be done. And as soon as this is ready with our fast time to market approach, for example, on stocks, then we are able to publish it. And on DuskEVM, it's right now in the same limbo, right? We are shortly before a testnet, but we are not able to announce more information right now. But everything is on track, and we are in a very good spot right now. But it's just this time in between at the moment where everybody would like to share the information and everybody would like to know the information.
yeah, no, I would agree. It's that sort of liminal stage, I think they call it. Hosaka says, how long will the public test run for? Do we have an estimation for that?
I'm not knowledgeable about that because I'm not in the DuskEVM project as of now. I assume those factors are also dependent on specific tests that our partners want to conduct. And so I'm unfortunately not able to give you a concrete timeline for that.
All right, I could see that James was typing, so let's see if he's back typing his question. Is stock still the final name?
This is
Is
a very good question. So stocks was more or less the internal code name, but we got used to the name. Everybody's using it. Nobody's questioning the name anymore at the moment. So there might be a high chance that we're just going to stick with this name and that our internal code name of the project is going to be the actual product name.
if you have a suggestion, let us know. Okay, nice. Signed off. Stocks it is then. Um, all right. If there is nothing else, I will say thank you for joining us. I will pray that
Thank
I
you for
did
having me.
OBS correctly. If not, Thomas, we're going to have to recreate this with exactly the same level of spontaneity and surprise. Um, so yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. George will be back next week. I'm not sure who's going to be joining George next week, but it'll be somebody from the team. Um, and we hope to have more to share with you very shortly because yeah, we're in the sort of signing and sealing phase, and pretty soon it will be delivered. So thank you everybody. Thomas, any final words from you?
I don't think that I have anything to add here.
All right, awesome. Oh, James is just typing. Let's just see if that was a question or a comment because I don't want to leave questions unanswered. Thank you for hosting. Oh, you're welcome. I tried my best. All right, awesome. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful
Have a nice
day.
day, everybody.
And we will see you again next week. All right,
Ciao.
bye.